Welcome back to the European Parliament in Brussels for this new season of Talking Europe. The summer holidays are over and it already seems the debt crisis is back to haunt EU leaders. With problems in Greece, Spain and a looming recession, leaders have embarked on a new round of shuttle diplomacy talks to try and save the euro. But is there a credible plan on the table to save the single currency? I'll put this question to my guests who will soon join me on this set. In the second part of Talking Europe, I'll talk to Angel Gurria. He's the Secretary General of the OECD. I will ask him what he makes of Mario Draghi's new plan to save a single currency. But as always, let's start on our set here at the European Parliament. Let me introduce you to my two guests today. To my right, Sharon Bowles. Hello and welcome to our show. You're a British MEP from the Alliance of Liberals and Democrats. I add that you're the President of the very influential Commission on Economic and Monetary Affairs. You're from Britain. Now, Britain, of course, is not in the Eurozone, but it is affected by the Eurozone crisis, and you'll tell us what you expect from EU leaders. Also on this set, Leonardo Domenici. You're from Italy.
Hey, bonjour.
Bonjour, buongiorno. You're an Italian MEP, as I said, from the Alliance of Socialists and Democrats, former mayor of Florence. You're also part of this Commission on Economic and Monetary Affairs. Well, let's talk about the future of the Eurozone. I was here in June. There was a sense of drama. Some observers were telling us the euro won't survive the summer. The euro is still here. The summer was actually relatively quiet. Sharon, how do you explain this? Where do we stand today?
Well, I think we had a good council meeting before we broke for the summer, where decisions were made that addressed both short-term and long-term, because I think that's what it needs, that you can't keep having short-term fixes that go on forever and ever and ever. You have to be able to offer to the markets and to everybody that there is going to be procedures put in place that move towards greater integration in the future. And so now the package is beginning to come together, and I think that has given everybody a lot of confidence. It's not comfortable. It's not comfortable for anybody. It's not comfortable for the single market to create a banking union that is only for the Eurozone, that isn't across the 27. And it's obviously not comfortable for those countries that find they have to undertake a lot more discipline, that they have to have a lot more of Europe poking around in their affairs.
And more intervention from Brussels,
and potentially pooling of resources and what the Germans hate to call a transfer union.
We're going to talk about this in a moment. But first, Leonardo Domenici, your feeling. Are we better off today than we were before the Council? Do you agree that there is a clear and credible plan on the table to save the euro?
I hope, with Sharon Bowles, that in the perspective we'll decide some important things regarding banking union, regarding the possibility of financing of weak sovereign debts of single countries. And I think that another very important point is to return to healthy economic growth, because this is very important from an economic and social point of view.
You're saying that one of the decisions, obviously, is to have more Europe, more integration, a banking union. This is not so much to the liking of the UK, of your country, though.
Well, the UK welcomed the idea of a banking union, but the government has said, but we're not in it. And of course, the initial plans that will be brought forward on a fast track will be for supervision by the European Central Bank. And there may well be options, if you like, for the countries that are going to join the euro to join in with that. But for a country that is not going to join, like the UK, then sterling is outside, and the Bank of England will want to continue in the role that it will be taking up soon of supervision. And this is where I say that there are challenges that to the single market, because for the single market in financial services to work, we do have to have supervision that works across the 27. And so we've been strengthening this with the European supervisory authorities, and it was always the vision of the Parliament that they would end up ultimately as the supervisor. And we still got to see them in a strong role to keep together the 27, so that we know that when a bank is being supervised in the UK, that the interpretation of all of the regulations and the guidelines and everything else is the same as the interpretation in France, Germany and Italy.
Yes, I agree with Sharon Bowles. I don't know if Sharon agrees with me, but I think that in UK, a part of the establishment is now aware that a breakdown of Eurozone is a problem also for United Kingdom.
Let me ask you very simply, for our viewers who don't really understand all these complicated terms, what should be done at this stage to reassure the markets and to turn the page and say, look, this crisis is now being solved very professionally, very clearly, and we'll be able to go ahead?
Well, I think the first thing is to say that it's going to be a long, hard slog, and we have to recognise that. There is no quick fix. There are things that can be done in the short term to help rebalance markets, interventions from the European Central Bank through bond buying and other measures that they don't normally take, that are based on around a short term, to make sure that countries are not paying a lot more than is really justified by the economic situation that there is.
And to reduce Italy and Spain's borrowing costs.
Indeed,
obviously.
because at the moment markets are costing in, if you like, a margin that says, well, you know, we don't really know what's going to happen. And that's why it's very important that there is the roadmap of what's going to happen in the longer term future, to make sure that we don't fall into this hole again. So now we've got the combination, we hope, of short-term measures and longer-term measures to make sure that there is no backsliding, that every time money is given, that a country doesn't say, well, thank you very much, and now I'm no longer going to go in for my structural repairs. We have to make sure that discipline is sufficiently strong, that we get to the ultimate goal. And I think that
that's precisely what Mario Draghi is saying,
yes.
that we are ready to play our part of the game, but we want guarantees that the discipline will be there and will stay.
Yes.
How relieved are you in Italy? Because Italy is still suffering from very high borrowing costs. How relieved are you from what you've heard this week?
Banca d'Italia is an independent entity. I think the only one in Italy, really, considers that the level of Italian spread is altered, is not real, and doesn't reflect the real situation, the real condition of Italian economy. We have, at this moment, a spread sliding about 400 basis points, but we could consider that a real level of spread is 200 basis points. Yes.
And we'll see, of course, whether the measures that were announced this week will have an impact on.
I consider that we don't have to give to a single country the license for a moral hazard, but we have to intervene to reduce this level inflated of spreads.
Which don't reflect the reality. Now, before we continue our discussion, I'd like to take a look at our report there. Our reporters travelled to Strasbourg, to the European Parliament in Strasbourg, to meet the new generation of Europeans, students from the Master in Management at ESCP Europe. As you will see, they too feel very concerned about the fate of the euro.
The European Parliament's back in session after the summer break, but without the familiar faces. Instead, 800 students of 30 different nationalities have stepped into the shoes of MEPs for 3 days. These students are from the new Master in Management of ESCP Europe. Their goal is to immerse themselves in the intricacies of Europe and to test their skills at negotiating and drawing up legislation.
It's interesting because actually these problems are not always typical.
Especially now during the crisis and the hectic times at the moment, it's really interesting to get to know the processes.
The students are not completely on their own, but guided by 40 experts from the world of economics and politics.
Each event like this is complex. Each one is a challenge. In 20 or 30 years, these students will have responsibilities, and it is today that they start to build Europe.
This involves posing questions to key power players in Europe, such as Germany's finance minister Wolfgang Schäuble. As one of the key figures tackling the current debt crisis, he fails to impress one student.
China has promised financial assistance, if I remember correctly, of $40 billion to the European Union. So then I ask you, Minister, what do you think? Is this not a risky investment for the Chinese?
Just a smile in response to the Chinese student as he reiterates his tough stance on Europe's struggling economies. He is optimistic it will bring results.
I hope at the end of this year we will have sustainable solutions for the euro, and this solution will convince markets that they can rebuild confidence in the euro.
A strong belief in European solidarity shared by the French MEP Joseph Daul.
I think the dedication and the work of each state across the EU, along with complicity, that'll get us out of the crisis. This isn't the last chance, but there must be more solidarity between countries.
But are the students reassured?
I'd say after listening to Mr. Schäuble, we have confidence.
We are optimistic. Afterwards, we were still a little bit worried by what he said, that the situation is not easy. Even as himself says, there are still a lot of problems. And we really hope that they will address them within 3 years, because we're on the job market.
From Parliament back to campus, many of the students will take the lessons learned here with them to their global business schools in Paris, London, Berlin, Madrid and Turin and carve out their careers.
Sharon Ball, we had this Chinese student put a very straightforward question to the German finance minister. Is the euro still worth a penny? Now, your country hasn't adopted the euro, obviously, but let me ask you very simply, is it worth all the pain? Should we really stick to the euro, or isn't it time to say, look, maybe it's better to dismantle the eurozone and try something new?
Well, I think the problem is that if we dismantled the eurozone, there isn't a way that we can do it simply. There would be huge complexities, and it would probably thrust the whole of Europe, including the UK, into something that is worse than the 1930s type of depression. And that's why in the UK they keep saying, well, yes, move forward with this further integration, move forward with these things which from a UK perspective are a little bit uncomfortable. It's the lesser of two evils. I think that we have such a determination to save the euro because the alternative is worse, that it is going to be there. I do think that there are huge downsides to some of the things that we are having to do, whether it be through quantitative easing by that name or another name, which we're doing in the UK, of course, and is being done in the United States, in terms of what it does for incomes from savings, what it does to asset prices, and how it is going to rebound on the younger generation as they try to provide for their futures. And we should recognise that therefore we're going to have to make amends for a long time to come in what we do, but that is still the way forward.
Leonardo Domenici, what's the feeling in Rome? Do people understand the need for all these sacrifices? Do they think it's worth keeping the euro, or would you rather go back to the lira?
Italy is traditionally a pro-European country. But at this moment, we have a lot of problems. because the image of this Europe is not a good image. I think that we have a problem of democratic legitimacy, and we have a problem regarding the involvement of public opinion in our debate.
If we were to meet again in December, we heard Mr. Schäuble say by the end of the year we'll have sustainable solutions. Are you optimistic that indeed the crisis will have eased by then?
I don't think that we'll be feeling comfortable by the end of the year, but I believe we will have made more progress. And I think that that's the name of the game. I think it's wrong to overpromise and to say we've seen the end. I think it is far more sensible to say we are incrementally making things better. We are one by one, if you like, putting the building blocks of the future in place. And we shouldn't underestimate what's been done already. If you look at the level of surveillance that countries are under to make sure that they do stick to the straight and narrow path, it is effectively already like every country being in an IMF program in terms of what it has to keep proving and how budgets are coordinated. And sometimes I think we're in the danger of, by always coming forward with a new idea, underselling the huge amount that has already been done. I mean, it may have been done scrappily, but my goodness, these are astonishing achievements, especially within the Eurozone.
Okay, well, we'll have to leave it there. Sharon Bowles, Leonardo Domenici, thank you very much for taking part in this edition of Talking Europe. And please stay with us on France 24. We'll return after the news break and we'll bring you a close-up interview with Angel Gurria. He's the Secretary General of the OECD. I'll ask him what he makes of Mario Draghi's latest plan to try and save the euro.